Hi everyone, it's Cassie. I hope you're having a great day. Welcome back to my YouTube channel for another video. Today we're going to be featuring the Spellbinders Freesia die. This is really beautiful. You can make these gorgeous 3D flowers with it, and it doesn't look like much there, but we're going to have fun with it. So I've got some watercolor cardstock, and I'm going to bring in my makeshift splatter box, and I'm going to take each of the pieces that I need and spray those with the colors that I need. This one is going to be mustard seed, so I'll spritz those. I love the little splattery bits that you get. This one we're going to be using spun sugar and wilted violet on it. I do make a mistake. I should have dried these and sprayed the backs, but we will fix that. This next one is going to be bundled sage and twisted citron. And then I'll pull all of those out, and I'm going to use my heat tool on these just to get those dried so that we can die cut them. But I should have sprayed them before I die cut them. So I've sprayed the one side, not really paying attention to the fact that this is a 3D die. The green isn't so much of a big deal. That one's not going to be a big deal. So I've gone ahead and got those all die cut. The yellow, I've die cut those and pulled those out. And then obviously all of our pieces to make our flower petals. And we're going to pull in another tool. This is the Susan's Garden Ultimate Toolkit. This is going to help us to manipulate these pieces into making them look like flowers. And there's lots of really cool pieces inside of this that you can play around with and really make your flowers look realistic. I have the one piece here, and it's got a ball on the end, and then you can just kind of break up the fibers of the paper so much easier using that. There's also some reverse tweezers in there and some regular tweezers, and they're fantastic for that. And this is what I'm looking at this going, oh, I probably really should have sprayed the backs. So I'm just kind of holding that in place. I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to put it together, whether I'm going to use liquid glue or some tape. But here you'll see me playing around with those flower petals, just breaking up the fibers of those. And it's, here I'm also realizing I really need to spray the backs of those petals. So I'm going to play a little bit more with this one. Not sure how that's going to pan out, but just pushing into the flower, and look at how well that does as far as like curling it up and making those look a little bit more realistic. All right, so I've gone ahead and sprayed them, and I love the different textures that we're getting here on the backs and the fronts. And I'm just going to use liquid glue to adhere these together in the centers. Find what works best for you. Probably not a tape runner, that may fall apart, but for the stamen, I've decided that some 1/8 inch Scor-Tape is going to work fabulously. So I do apologize that I'm off screen here, but I'm just going to twist that up. I'm using my reverse tweezers. I stick it on there and then just roll it in place. And you'll see once I pull it off of my reverse tweezers what that's going to look like. And I'll do that for all three of those. The green, our stems and our leaves, those aren't going to require a whole lot more. I will kind of play around with some paint here in a bit, but I'm going to get those stamen ready to go first. So the 1/8 inch Scor-Tape is perfect. That worked out really well. And I'm just going to squirt a little bit of that wilted violet on my glass mat and then bring in a paintbrush and dip that right on the ends of where I think my buds would be. Yes, it is going to get a little bit muddy, but it's definitely still purple, because obviously when you mix green and purple together, it's not going to give you, a real solid color other than more of a brown. But you can still tell that it is wilted violet. I'm going to glue the pieces together, let those sit for a few seconds before I manipulate them anymore. I want that to sort of dry. We'll finish up our stamen while those are drying. And I've decided with this, I'm actually going to make it a wall hanging. You could, very easily make these into cards. They'd probably be cards you'd want to hand deliver because they're going to not fit into an envelope very well, being as they're so three-dimensional. But you can absolutely make beautiful cards that maybe your recipient could turn into a wall hanging. So here are our stamen all ready to go. Our flowers are drying up a little bit more. And so once those are dry, I'm going to stick those back on that little foam pad that comes in the Susan's Garden Ultimate Toolkit. And then I'll just make those a little bit more 3D. I've cut my paper down to about 4 inches by 4 inches. And I'm going to glue down my leaves. So I'll glue down the stem here. And then I'll glue down my leaves. I cut out some extras of those. I wanted there to be lots of nice green on there. And we're just using this liquid glue to make sure and glue everything down. I really have been enjoying this Barely Art glue. If you've watched me for any length of time, you know I've been using this for quite a while. And I've actually refilled my bottle. That's how much I've used this. So it's great. It's a nice strong adhesive and it dries fairly quickly. Before I attach my flowers down, I'm going to bring in some Distress Oxide in the color Wilted Violet. That's going to frame up my piece really nicely and bring in some of that purple that's on the flowers. And then I will start gluing down the flowers. Just again, using this liquid glue, it's going to hold really nicely. You could probably, since this is going to be a wall hanging, you could even use maybe even a hot glue gun. That would dry pretty quickly. But I often burn myself when it comes to a glue gun. So we're just going to play around with our flowers, glue those down, hold those in place for just a tiny bit, and then I can manipulate those petals even more. It's so fun to do these. And again, our last flower. It's so three-dimensional. And then the same thing with the stamen. I'm just going to glue those in place. That glue's going to hold it. It's not going anywhere. So once I'm happy with the flowers, we'll just put little dots of glue on our stamen and stick those into place. And then we can manipulate those even more once that's dry. So I'm just gluing those into place and letting those dry before I play around with them too much. I'm going to bring in this old school label maker that I have. I just think these are fun to use. And it's a Dymo. I think I got it at Walmart for like $5 or something like that. I'm going to spell out what this flower is and stamp that into it. And then once that's all done, I'll trim it down just a tiny bit. I'm going to give it an angled edge right there. And then I'll peel off its release paper and stick it down. I just think that's fun. And then I've had this little box. I've actually had it for a few years. I'm going to paint it because I thought this would be super fun to make this into a wall hanging. So I'm going to paint that with some titanium white golden paint that I have. I'm going to give it a couple of coats. Want to make sure that it's nice and coated. And then I'm going to bring in some splatter. So I've got some silver splatter paint. It's a watercolor. And I'm just going to splatter that all over my piece. That just adds some extra texture and interest. And then I'm also going to paint the edges. You really can't see me do a whole lot of that. But I'm going to paint the edges just that you're going to see with this. Now, because this is watercolor, it's not going to stick. So you are going to need a fixative. And so I sprayed a fixative. I took it outside, sprayed a fixative. And then I've got some foam squares that I'm putting down on the inside just to make sure that my paper is going to stick. And I'll stick this down on the inside. And that's going to finish off our little wall hanging. I love how this turned out. It's cute. It's just a little over 4 inches by 4 inches. And it's going to look nice out there for my decorations. So if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button and definitely consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. I do have a blog post to go along with this, so you can hit that up for more pictures. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope you have a great day.